They saw a uniform. They saw a receptionist. They saw someone they thought was beneath them. But what they didn't see was a mind that held the keys to the world. When a billionaire CEO invites his invisible black receptionist to a high-stakes language competition as a joke to fill a seat, he expects her to fail. Instead, he watches in stunned silence as she destroys the arrogance of the world's elite, one language at a time. You are not going to believe how this ends. This is a story about hidden genius and the sweet taste of vindication. If you love stories where the underdog comes out on top, hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications. And please, press the like button right now, it helps us share these powerful stories with the world. Now, let's get into it. The lobby of Sterling Global Enterprises was a cathedral of glass and steel, designed to make anyone earning less than 7 figures feels insignificant. At the center of this intimidating space sat Maya, a woman who had mastered the art of being invisible. To the executives who breezed past her desk every morning, she was just the receptionist. Not Maya. Not a person. Just a function, a smiling face to accept parcels and point toward the elevators. Maya was 26, black, and possessed a quiet dignity that she wore like armor. She needed this job. It paid for her mother's dialysis and the small apartment they shared in Queens. But while her body was confined to the front desk, her mind was constantly traveling. Maya had a secret. She was a hyper-polyglot. Neurologists and linguists estimate that hyper-polyglots, people who speak more than 6 languages fluently, make up less than 0.1% of the world's population. Maya didn't just speak 6, she spoke 12, with a working knowledge of 4 others. It wasn't a magic trick, it was the result of a childhood spent in the most diverse borough of New York City, an obsession with syntax, and a brain wired to absorb phonemes like a sponge absorbs water. It was a rainy Tuesday when the catalyst for her new life walked through the door. Arthur Sterling, the CEO, was a man who built his empire on communication but rarely listened to anyone. He was pacing the lobby, his face red, shouting into his phone. "I don't care that the translator is stuck in traffic, Julian. The delegation from Chengdu is here now. If we mess up the tonal nuances of this contract, I lose $1 billion." Sterling slammed the phone shut. He looked around wildly, his eyes landing on Maya. He didn't see a savior, he saw a warm body. "You. Receptionist. Bring coffee to the boardroom. Now. And don't speak unless spoken to." Maya nodded, her face impassive. She prepared the tray and took the elevator up to the 50th floor. Inside the boardroom, the atmosphere was toxic. 3 Chinese investors sat with stone faces. Across from them, Arthur Sterling was sweating. Beside him sat Julian Thorne, Sterling's head of global relations, a man who claimed to speak 5 languages but possessed the charm of a wet sock. Julian was butchering Mandarin. "Women yao. My nida. Muchin?" The lead investor's eyes widened in offense. Julian had meant to say, "We want to buy your machine," but his tones were wrong. He had just offered to buy the investor's mother. The investor stood up, buttoning his suit jacket, ready to leave. The deal was dead. Maya, holding the coffee tray, felt a physical cringe. She couldn't help it. She set the tray down and, without thinking, spoke. "Do a bookie, Xiansheng." Her voice was soft but the tones were crystal clear, perfect standard Mandarin with a Beijing Erhua accent. "Wo de tongshi de feien hen zhaogao. Ta xiang shua de. I jiqi, bu. I hamuchin dot. I apologize, sir. My colleague's pronunciation is terrible. He meant to say a machine, not a mother dot." The room went silent. The investor froze. He turned slowly to look at the receptionist. His expression softened from anger to shock, and then to intrigue. "Ni shua de hen liuli," the investor replied. "You speak very fluently." "Nali, Nali," Mia responded with the traditional humble deflection used in Chinese culture, bowing her head slightly. "It is an honor to speak your beautiful language." Arthur Sterling's jaw was practically on the mahogany table. Julian looked like he had swallowed a lemon. The investor sat back down. "We will continue," he said in English, but only if she translates. For the next 2 hours, Mia facilitated a billion-dollar merger. She navigated complex technical jargon, cultural subtleties, and legal terminology effortlessly. When the meeting ended, the investors shook her hand first, ignoring Sterling and Julian. After they left, Sterling looked at Maya. There was no gratitude in his eyes, only a calculating glimmer. "How?" he asked. "I study, sir," Maya said, smoothing her skirt. "May I return to the front desk?" "No," Sterling said. A cruel smile played on his lips. "Every year, the foundation hosts the Gala of Tongues. It's a competition for the world's linguistic elite. Julian here has won 3 years in a row. But I think it's time for a little sport." I'm not interested in games, sir, Maya said. I'll pay you, Sterling countered. $50,000 just to enter. $200,000 if you win. Maya thought of her mother's medical bills. She thought of the debt piling up. She looked at Julian, who was sneering at her with pure contempt. I'll do it, she said. The Gala of Tongues was held 2 weeks later in a ballroom that dripped with gold and crystal. The attendees were the academic elite, Oxford professors, UN translators, diplomats, and old money aristocrats. They held champagne flutes and spoke in hushed, pretentious tones. When Maya entered, the room didn't silence, it whispered. She was wearing a simple, elegant black dress she'd found at a thrift store and tailored herself. She stood out in a sea of tuxedos and designer gowns, not just because of her dress, but because she was the only black woman in the room who wasn't holding a serving tray. Is that Sterling's receptionist? A woman in pearls whispered loud enough for Maya to hear. I heard he brought her as a diversity stunt. Sad, her partner replied. She'll be out in the first round. Maya kept her head high. She walked to the contestants' bench. There were 5 competitors. Julian was there, looking smug. There was a professor from Berlin, a diplomat from France, and a prodigy from Japan. And Maya. The competition was brutal. It wasn't just about knowing words, it was about speed, accuracy, and cultural depth. The moderator, a stern woman from the Sorbonne, stepped up. Round 1. Simultaneous interpretation. Spanish to Italian to Portuguese. Go. Audio played over the speakers, a fast-paced debate on agricultural economics. The contestants had to translate instantly. Julian was flawless, his voice booming. The others held their own. Maya closed her eyes. She didn't translate word for word, she translated meaning for meaning, a technique known as deverbalization. Her Italian was musical, her Portuguese guttural and rhythmic. She passed effortlessly. Round 2, the moderator announced. Syntax restructuring. Vietnamese and Thai. These are tonal, analytic languages. One wrong pitch changes the meaning entirely. The German professor stumbled, confusing the Vietnamese rising tone with the high rising tone. He was eliminated. Maya stepped up. She spoke the Vietnamese passage with the precision of a newscaster from Hanoi. Her tones were sharp, her vowels clipped. Sterling was watching from the VIP balcony, a glass of scotch in his hand. He wasn't smiling anymore. He was leaning forward. Only 3 remain, the moderator said. Julian, the Japanese prodigy, and Maya. The target language is Hungarian. You must listen to a philosophical text in English and translate it instantly into Hungarian, maintaining the correct suffix agglutinations. Hungarian is notoriously difficult for English speakers. It builds meaning by gluing long strings of suffixes to words. The Japanese prodigy faltered. He got lost in the grammar, stuttering over the object definiteness conjugation. He was out. It was down to Julian and Maya. Julian stepped up. He was sweating now. He delivered the translation, but it was clunky. It was technically correct, but it lacked soul. It sounded like a textbook. Maya stepped to the microphone. She took a breath. When she spoke Hungarian, it flowed like the Danube. She used archaic idioms that hadn't been in textbooks for 50 years, phrases she picked up from the elderly Hungarian chess players in the park in Queens. The judges nodded approvingly. The room was electric. The whispers had stopped. The diversity stunt was matching the champion blow for blow. Julian glared at her. You're just a parrot, he hissed off mic, you memorize sounds. You don't understand culture? We'll see, Maya whispered back. The moderator cleared her throat. The final round is code switching. You will be given a scenario. You must navigate a conversation that switches rapidly between 3 linguistically distinct languages. The languages are Arabic, Levantine dialect, Mandarin Chinese, and Xhosa. The crowd gasped. Xhosa. A Bantu language famous for its click consonants, the X, Q, and C clicks. It is almost impossible for non-natives to master without years of immersion. Julian went first. He handled the Mandarin well. He managed the Arabic okay, though his accent was heavy. But when he got to the Xhosa, he crumbled. He couldn't make the clicks while maintaining the flow of the sentence. He sounded like he was choking. He stopped, flustered, his face turning purple. I protest. Julian shouted. This is obscure. Nobody speaks this in the corporate world. Sit down, Julian, Sterling yelled from the balcony. Let her speak. Maya approached the microphone. The silence was absolute. She began. She switched into Levantine Arabic, her voice warm and melodious, negotiating a theoretical peace treaty. Then, without a pause, she snapped into Mandarin to address a trade dispute, her tones precise. And then, she switched to Xhosa. Eucalisilo luenza kugabalil, she said. Practice makes perfect. The clicks were sharp, percussive, and perfectly integrated into her speech. It was a linguistic symphony. She moved between the three languages not as if she were translating, but as if she were three different people living in one body. It was flawless. When she finished, there was a beat of silence. Then, the judge from South Africa stood up and began to clap. Slowly, the rest of the room followed. The polite applause turned into a roar. Even the snooty woman in pearls was on her feet. Maya stood center stage, the lights blinding her. She wasn't invisible anymore. Julian stormed off the stage, his career in ruins. Sterling came down from the balcony, looking at Maya with a mixture of greed and newfound respect. Here, Sterling said, handing her a check. 200,000. You won. Maya took the check. She looked at the number. It was freedom. It was her mother's health. And, Sterling continued, Julian is fired. I need a new head of global relations. The salary is triple what you make now. Plus bonuses. You start Monday. The old Maya, the one who needed to be safe, would have said yes, immediately. But Maya looked around the room. She saw the way these people looked at her, valuable now only because she had performed for them. I accept the check, Mr. Sterling, Maya said, her voice projecting to the back of the room. But I decline the job. Sterling blinked. Excuse me? You're a receptionist. I'm offering you the world. You're offering me a golden cage, Maya said. I speak 12 languages, Mr. Sterling. I can talk to 80% of the human population in their mother tongue. I don't need your company to see the world. I'm going to build my own. Maya walked out of the ballroom, her heels clicking on the marble, the check clutched in her hand. She left the stunned millionaire and the humiliated linguist behind. 6 months later, Maya launched her own consultancy firm, specialized in high-stakes diplomatic and crisis translation. She didn't just translate words, she bridged cultures. She hired other invisible people, immigrants, janitors with PhDs from their home countries, people the world had overlooked.